At 20,000 is the opening bid. At 20,000, Zach has the bid at 20,000. 22.5 next. We're at 20,000. Any advance at 20,000. All done and selling on the internet for 20,000. Sold 20,000 to 6,000. 1951. You, Jack.
So this is Jason DeBoard at the Original Prop blog, and as you can see, the Profiles in History Hollywood Auction 96 is currently going on as I record this. I kind of wanted to get through most of it, gotten through most of the highlights now. Just wanted to give a little taste of the live auction experience via the internet. I actually like the iCollector format here. You can see what's coming up. You can scroll up and see what things have sold for clearly. I like that they put the estimate right here in the middle. And if you click on this, it'll pop it open. You can scroll down and see the description. And then, there's the big bid button. And then you've got the window with the auctioneer and live audio and video. So I actually like this this format. I think it's good. So historically, with the Original Prop blog, I've always done these post-auction reviews for Profiles in History, as well as some other auction houses when they do, these really big tentpole kind of auctions that have a lot of material that, I refer to as genre films and television, which would cover action, sci-fi, drama, fantasy, you name it, but more contemporary material as well as the historical material, which Profiles in History does a lot of everything. But, they've really built their reputation on finding those big marquee, recognizable pieces from, important films and fan favorite films and popular films. So, it's a good kind of barometer of what's happening in this art market in terms of prices and trends and you name it. So it's always a good experience to kind of look back at the auction results and try to kind of figure out, okay, what does this mean? So this will be the first time I'm doing this in video form. I did one for the Prop Store auction, the TV Treasures auction they did with the Commissar collection a couple weeks ago. So I'm doing the same thing here. As you saw, the auction is actually literally still happening. It's getting towards the end of day 4, as you saw. So I kind of wanted to just dive into this, and I've basically teed up in my browser here each day, and I've sorted them with the highest realized prices first, because I think that's a good sort of way to start looking at the results. So let's just dive into that. I'm basically unscripted here. If you see some cuts, it's probably just to save time, or maybe I used the word too many times. I don't know. But basically, I'm just going to dive into this. So I'm not going to spend much time on this, but basically they had their essentially Marilyn, the auction, as part of the first day, day 1. This isn't really something that I specialize in or have much experience talking about or knowledge about, but I thought we'd just quickly kind of scroll through and basically look for the highlights, which would be, this is the only one that I didn't pre-sort because I just pulled it up here as an afterthought. So you can see there's a lot of photographs and things like that. Basically, I was just going to see what the costume results were. I actually have not looked at this at all yet. So let's see. We've got 2 costumes here that passed, with one was 60 to 80,000 estimate. One was 40 to 60. This one passed. This one on the right sold for, I'm just going to read off the prices with buyer premium. So as you can see here, it's $40,000 hammer price, $11,200 buyer's premium, and then the total price is $51,200. So we're just going to go with the total price throughout this video as we're able to. So this is another pass here. This one here sold for $128,000. This one's a pass. This one's a pass. This one sold for $128,000. This one sold for $89,000. This personal, heavily hand annotated shooting script from the 7-year itch sold for $102,000. So that's a really significant price there. This one sold for $128,000. And this touring version of the subway dress from 7-year itch sold for $128,000. This sold for $25,000. $38,000. Pass. $128,000. $20,000. See if there's any more wardrobe pieces. $121,000. Some shoes for $20,000. Okay, so that's it. So this is the second part of day one. Once the Marilyn sort of separate catalog concluded, they moved on to this session on the same day. So this is still day one. So this is going to be more vintage material. This is huge, this Wizard of Oz production archive. Let's take a quick look at this. So this sold for $1 million with a $280,000 buyer premium. So that is a huge result. Obviously, this is a really important archive of production paperwork, and it's sold basically right in the middle of the estimate at $1 million pre-buyer's premium. So that's a huge result there. They sold an Academy Award from Mutiny on the Bounty for $256,000. They sold the screen-worn hat from Wizard of Oz for $102,000. A Greta Garbo costume for $83,000. Another Academy Award for Manhattan Melodrama. Arthur Caesar's Academy Award. I guess that's the name of the film. It's a vintage film. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. So it's $76,000 for that. Wizard of Oz spear. We've seen these before. This sold for $70,000. We're not interested in the Donald Trump book. So those were really the big highlights of the first day. And like I said, this is going to be more vintage material. So let's see here. Like these, this, like I said, this is sorted by value and we're into the $2,000 range here. So it drops off pretty significantly once you get past those really big highlights. I just want to scroll down and see if there was anything interesting that was passed, because, this is 5 pages at 100 lots per page, and we're down to the bottom of the first page and we're down to $832. So I'm kind of curious about that. Like I said, I haven't really gone through this. I did watch some of the auction live, but only the last 2 days when it was more contemporary material. So let's scroll down through here where these are all, sub $1,000 sales. So it's a lot of photography. We're into the $200. So here we go. So now we're into the past lots. So these are photos. So we basically got a little over 2 pages of past lots out of 5, which is pretty significant. All these are past. And they have estimates of $200 to $300. So, nothing too marquee in here. It doesn't appear. Yeah, so costume sketches, photographs, lots of passes. So nothing, really super significant in here. So we're going to move on to day 2. So these are, again, the highlights. This is sorted by value. So these are the highest values first. So we've got another Academy Award sold for over $500,000, $524,000. So that's a huge sale. We've got a Golden Globe for $51,000. Metropolis lobby card for $32,000. a desk statue from Planet of the Apes for $25,000. An oil painting commissioned by the studio, I guess, for Ben-Hur, or from Ben-Hur, $20,000. Frank Frazetta illustration, $23,000. So, again, this is more vintage material, which, just isn't my background and expertise. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking at this. Interestingly, though, they've been this auction, I've noticed they've had some things sold explicitly as replicas, like these 10 Commandment replicas, which is just kind of strange. I mean, it's memorabilia, but it is interesting for an auction house that's known for selling original stuff to kind of sprinkle in some replicas. But, that's fine if there's a market for it. And it's clearly labeled. Yeah, so nothing super spectacular in here. Not to sound like a snob because I don't own any of this stuff, but I'm just saying relative to other things in the auction. So that's page 1. Page 2, we're into the $1,000 range here. And again, I want to get to the past lots just to get a sense of what didn't pass, because when it's sorted this way, you kind of have to, it's a little different because you're not seeing things in the sequence in which they appeared. But, we're into the $500 range here, $300, $200, and we're about halfway through day 2. So within day 2, this is set up with 100 lots per page here. So we did page 1, page 2, page 3. We get to page 4, and we're into the past lot. So, we must be looking at like 40% pass rate here. So let's see. We've got a lot of animation cells passed, animation material. All these are past lots. No winning bids on any of this stuff. So that's a lot of, that's almost that entire page. And then page 5, it's another 100 lots that are going to be all past lots here. So that's significant. This is a lot of material that's been put up and passed. So I recognize this was one of the marquee pieces, this Hero Nautilus helmet from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This had an estimate of 35 to 55,000. This did not get a winning bid. Let me see. And then this is another significant piece, the Forbidden Planet Hero Blaster with holster. This had an estimate of $60,000 to $80,000, and this passed unsold. Also, we've got some Planet of the Apes material. These are all passes. And these are all passes. And I may totally miss something because I'm really just scrolling this quickly because I don't want the video to be like 5 hours long. But let's see. Yep, so these are all past lots. Okay, so that's day 2. Now, day 3 was where I started watching. Now, this again is sorted highest first. And you would get a different experience if you were kind of viewing this in lot order, because there's a big Star Wars section, there's a big Jaws section, there's a big Star Trek section, but we're just going to look at the highlights right now. So there were a lot of past lots on Star Wars. 2 of the items sold for pretty good money. There was this TIE Fighter pilot helmet from Star Wars, sold for $256,000. And then there was this Stormtrooper helmet from The Force Awakens that sold for $102,000. So you'd think, oh, that's awesome. Those are really good auction results. Well, here's kind of the interesting thing, though, if you dig into it. We're going to get a little sidetracked here. So this TIE Fighter helmet It sold for $200,000 with a $56,000 buyer's premium. So Prop Store actually sold this same TIE Fighter pilot helmet in one of their own live auctions back in 2016. And they sold it for 180,000 pounds, which is $240,000. So while at first glance, this sale of $200,000 might look good, it's actually less than what was paid to Prop Store, when it was purchased 2 years ago. So, that's kind of interesting. It actually sold for more money with Prop Store versus Profiles in History. So it's a similar situation with this Stormtrooper helmet from The Force Awakens. Profiles in History sold this yesterday for $80,000 with a $22,000 buyer's premium. So this same helmet was purchased from a Christie's charity auction in 2016, and it was purchased for $86,500, which is over $100,000 US. So again, it's actually sold for less than what a competing auction house sold it for, 2 years earlier. So it's kind of interesting. Another interesting piece, this was actually a really good result for Profiles. They had this Type 2 phaser from the original Star Trek series. This sold for $204,000 with buyer's premium. One thing that collectors were kind of talking about leading up to the auction is in the description, it says here, it exhibits unique characteristics and its screen matches as being worn by Leonard Nimoy as Spock in the episode The Paradise Syndrome. So my friend Don, who has the blog Wrath of Dawn, which if you've never checked this out, like, he's an amazing writer. Like, I love this guy. He puts up some really great content if you're into Star Trek. So he analyzes Star Trek stuff to death. Like, he's my go-to Star Trek guy. Like, if I ever have any questions, he does amazing research. So he put up this article on Sunday titled "A Challenge to Profiles in History," and Phaser consigner Jason Joyner, show me the money shot. So he's a big fan of this piece, and he's saying, in his opinion, it's likely real. And, he is a fan of this piece, but as he says here, he has a problem with the attribution of the piece having been used by Leonard Nimoy. And he reads that same quote that I just read and says, when they use the term screen match, that is setting a high bar indeed. It means they can prove this was used by Nimoy. In other words, Profiles is telling the world this is not just a real phaser, it's Spock's real phaser. And he goes on and on about his research. And basically, he was never able to actually match it. So he's kind of putting it out there to Profiles, like, let me see the shot. You're saying it's screen matched. Let me see, like, proof of that. Let me see an image where you can match it up. And, he kind of goes into the value of a just ordinary one that's not attributed to any main character, the value versus one that would be like, Spock's weapon or Kirk's weapon, and that would bring a premium on what it brings at auction. So, I'd recommend definitely checking out this article, and I'll put a link in the description below. And if you're reading this on the original Prop Blog website, I'll put a link there as well. But yeah, it's a great price result. I think people are just saying, hey, let's see how you're saying it's a screen matched item. So, just a little something to talk about. So one of the other highlights here on day 3 is this Jaws clapperboard, which sold for $128,000. And that's another piece that we've seen up for auction recently. So here we've got Profiles. It sold for $100,000 with a $28,000 buyer's premium. This was previously sold by Prop Store, also in 2016, for 70,000 pounds, which they show a translation of $93,333.33. So A little bit of an improvement there, but not a lot. So just interesting that there's pieces that are being purchased from other auction houses that are then appearing in profiles and history shortly thereafter. And, in these cases, they're not doing like remarkably better than they did when they sold, in these cases a couple years ago. So let's move on. We've got a Patrick Stewart Captain Picard command chair that sold for $121,000. Like, that's huge. I'm a huge Star Trek Next Generation fan. If you've ever called my cell phone, Patrick Stewart actually recorded my voicemail message. So I'm a huge fan of that. That seems like a really high price for this. This was actually, I guess, pre-buyer's premium. It's right within the estimate. So that's what they're looking for. We've got a William Shatner tunic from Star Trek, the original series, sold for $76,000, which seems like that's kind of what those go for. A golden ticket. It seems like they have one of these like every auction. $51,000. Like, that's crazy to me, but people are out there paying that, so good on them, I guess. John Travolta script from Saturday Night Fever, $51,000. That's a really good result. These X-Wing and TIE Fighter miniatures from the original molds, that seems really like a high price to me. It's right at, it's basically the opening estimate is what it's sold for. With buyer's premium, it's $51,000. That's a lot to pay for what is essentially a replica. So that's interesting. And then I understand these C-3PO hands have really good provenance. So these did well. They got $51,000. We've got an Uncle Fester coat for $38,000. We've got a Riddler costume for $38,000. A face hugger from Alien for $28,000. The Space 1999 model, $25,000. And then you're kind of in the $20,000 to $25,000 range for these items here. We're getting into the $20,000 range, $15,000. This seems kind of low. Raging Bull gloves, $14,000. Classic film. So now we're into the $10,000 range. Yeah, like, these prequel lightsabers, these used to sell for so much more money, like tens of thousands of dollars, and this one sold with buyer's premium for just under $10,000, $8,900. And I believe some other ones sold for less. Yeah, like this one, this Count Dooku one for $8,300. Death Star miniature pieces, we see these come up a lot. That's pretty much in the ballpark, maybe $5,000 to $10,000. Jango Fett stunt pistol, with buyer's premium, $5,700. So then we're getting into, nothing really marquee here for the rest of day 3. So, for an entire day, there's not a whole bunch of highlights. Like I said, at the top, we've got these 4 here, or I guess we've got 5 that are 100,000 plus. And then 3 of them, the 2 Star Wars helmets and the clapperboard were just recently, auctioned with other auction houses within the last 2 years. So, not too, I'm not trying to be really negative, just not super exciting results here. So that's the first 100 lots sorted by value, and you're down to $2,500 here. So let's look at the next page. And I didn't watch the whole day yesterday. I just watched parts of it. So some of this will be news to me. We're into the $2,500 range here. Getting into the $2,000 range. I'm really more interested at this point to kind of get to see what lots were passed. Because anything in this range is not going to be like, oh yeah, this is one thing that really interests me. Mark English replica tricorder. So again, it's kind of weird. Like Mark English, that's a notorious name in collecting as someone who used to make replicas that were passed off as originals. And here we've got a replica being sold, with original stuff. So it's just a curiosity to me. Okay, so that's the first 2 pages of 6, and we're down to under $1,000 for the final price here. Let's keep scrolling into the hundreds of dollars, $300. Just want to see where the break is, where we get into past lots here. Okay, so looks like we're maybe midway through this page here, which we're on page 4 of 6, where we get into the past lots. And we just want to see if there's anything really notable here. I kind of remember from my preview, there were certain things that I pointed out that I thought had crazy estimates. And I think most to all of those actually did get passed with no bids. Like I remember this Gilligan shirt with a $30,000 to $50,000 estimate, which is crazy that, unsurprisingly went unsold. I've got a Green Hornet gas gun, unsold at $6,000 to $8,000 estimate. Some night gallery paintings, which are super cool, but they had estimates of $60,000 to $80,000 and $40,000 to $60,000. We had this Battlestar Galactica complete Cylon with a $30,000 to $50,000 estimate that was passed. A couple more costumes from Battlestar Galactica. This Blake 7 filming miniature with a $20,000 to $30,000 estimate passed. Another miniature. We've got the Space 1999 miniature with a $20,000 to $30,000 estimate that's passed. Again, as I said, I think in the prop store commissar auction, the Sopranos wardrobe, we see these pieces come up again and again, and there's just not a lot of sales on those items. Bunch of lost stuff got passed. So now we're into the last 2 pages here. These are all past lots. So we have more lost material. And I heard from someone that Tootsie Dustin Hoffman costume passed. I'm not sure what day that fell on. I might have passed it already. We've got the Sean Connery James Bond costume. This had $100,000 to $150,000 estimate. This passed with no bids. What else do we have here? Some artwork. Barbara Streisand, Hello Dolly, $15,000 to $20,000 unpassed. These marquee Steve McQueen pieces, there's this motorcycle, had an estimate of $100,000 to $200,000. That passed. Steve McQueen's hero screen worn jacket from Le Mans, $40,000 to $60,000. That passed. And the Steve McQueen stuff was really hot a couple years ago, so that's interesting. So I was really curious about this Jaws material. Someone had speculated to me privately that they felt like it was going to pass, and a lot of it did pass. So these are all Jaws items that passed. unsold. So we had these Sylvester Stallone Rocky boots with a $20,000 to $30,000 estimate that passed without a sale. Okay, so we're going to get to the last page of day 3 here. Henry Cavill Superman cape from Man of Steel. You know, with all the stuff going on with the DCEU, that's not surprising. Yeah, this one's curious to me. This Star Wars Episode 4 costume, it had a really low estimate, $2,500 to $3,500. This went unsold, so that is curious. We had this camera that was used, I believe, on Star Wars and Raiders with a $120,000 to $150,000 estimate. That did not sell. This, quote, production-made helmet from Return of the Jedi for the Royal Guard had a $25,000 to $35,000 estimate, went unsold. This production-made Scout Trooper helmet with a $40,000 to $60,000 estimate went unsold. This AT-AT cutout went unsold. Test bust from Empire Strikes Back of Han Solo and Carbonite went unsold. Promotional ILM promotional C-3PO helmet went unsold. Yoda created by the ILM Creature Shop went unsold. Darth Vader helmet made by ILM for promotion with a $40,000 to $60,000 estimate went unsold. So lots of Star Wars stuff went unsold. Got this Mace Windu Samuel L. Jackson cloak went unsold. And then we get into the Star Trek material. See if there's anything super interesting here. Spock's headband, really low estimate, $2,000 to $3,000. That went unsold. Some costumes. So here we've got the Alien Queen maquette from Aliens. It had a $30,000 to $50,000 estimate. That went unsold. This I clearly remember talking about in my preview video, thinking the estimate was crazy. The Ripley costume from Aliens with a $300,000 to $500,000 estimate. That went unsold. This Blues Brothers miniature, crazy estimate, $30,000 to $50,000. That went unsold. Paul Newman racing jacket unsold. So that's day 3. So now we're getting to the last day, which I believe is still happening as I'm typing this. Let me refresh this and see. Yeah, it's still happening. But I think they've gone through most of it. So this was surprising to me. This Spider-Man 3 costume sold for $140,000. This wasn't a popular film even at the time, and it just has not aged well. But I guess it's just anything Marvel Comics now is probably going to do pretty well, even if it's not something that's technically part of the MCU. This hoverboard. So this is interesting. Someone was just telling me that this has sold twice in recent years for way, way, way less money. So with buyer's premium, $108,000, like that's a new record. That's a huge price for a hoverboard. So that's a really good result for them. Someone else mentioned to me today that it's dirt bike day because we've got 2 dirt bikes, both selling for $76,800. One was used in First Blood by Sylvester Stallone. One was used in Terminator 2, the John Connor, the young kid character. Those surprise me, but hey, those are good results for what they are. This Jumanji board got a really good result, $57,600. And I just remember that Prop Store had one of these on display at Comic-Con in July of this year as well. And I never looked to see what that sold for, just because that's not a movie that I've never seen Jumanji, believe it or not. So there's going to be a jump cut. I'm going to look and see what that result is. I'm kind of curious to compare. So these are the results from the big prop store auction this year, and they sold their Jumanji game board for approximately in US dollars $61,000, and that's compared with Profiles selling theirs today for $57,000. So nearly the same result between Prop Store and Profiles. Prop Stores just sold theirs for a little bit more money. So I was actually watching the bidding on this Arnold Schwarzenegger Total Recall bug extraction device. This had an estimate of $3,000 to $5,000, and there is like a crazy online bidding war with this thing. And it sold for $41,600. So that was some crazy interest in that piece. So I love this piece. This is original artwork for the cover of the Atari video game back in the day version of Raiders of the Lost Ark. This sold for $38,000, which it actually hammered for the opening bid. There was just one bid of $30,000, but with premium. But I thought that was a cool piece. So this Doctor Strange recreation of his cloak, which to me means replica. Let me take a look at this. I'm curious about this. This sold for, with premium, $38,000. I guess because it's autographed. I never got into autographs. I never understood how people put so much value in those. But yeah, it's basically a replica with some autographs. It had an estimate of $2,000 to $3,000, and it sold for $38,000. So that's a good result for Profiles. Yeah, I've said before, Muppets terrify me, so I'm not even going to go into that. The Spaceballs miniature, I feel like this has come up a couple times before, or at least I've seen it on exhibit at Profiles booth and Comic-Con before. So that finally sold for $25,000. Bride of Chucky, $25,000. Some Wolverine claws, $25,000. Back to the Future Sports Almanac, $23,000. So you can see like these high prices drop pretty dramatically, pretty fast for, hundreds and hundreds of items per day. Like it drops off really fast. These Hellraiser boxes did really good. $21,000, $20,000. I don't even know what this is. I feel like there was something similar to this on eBay years ago. This Edward Scissorhands hand for $17,000. Yeah, so these are kind of just moderate results. Like I said, I owned this True Lies pistol years ago, and I think I sold it for $8,000 to $10,000 like many years ago, and that sold for $10,000. Hammer, $12,000 with buyer's premium. We've seen these Catwoman cows come up before. I think I've seen them sell for a lot more, but I might just be misremembering. Fembot. Yeah, people didn't really know what to make of this wallet. It sold. Yeah, these Austin Powers costumes, these used to sell for so much money, and this sold for, $8,000. So that's kind of a shift. Same with these Terminator jackets. They used to, even though it's Terminator 3, they still used to go for a lot more money. So now we're into 5,000 and below. So these aren't going to be super notable items. So I'm really curious to get to the past lots to see what did not sell at auction on this final day here. So at the bottom of the first page of 6 pages, we are at $2,500. So the values are going to keep dropping here as we scroll down. I'm just going to scroll through these really quickly because we're into the really, low end of what they're selling in the context of, the bigger picture here. These are things selling for under $1,000. I just want to see what was passed. Okay, so we're getting close to the bottom of this page here when we get into the past lots. So these angels that were described as from the Ark of the Covenant, from Raiders of the Lost Ark, had a $30,000 to $50,000 estimate. These passed. This head from Raiders it only had a $3,000 to $5,000 estimate. That passed. So this is the Dustin Hoffman outfit. This had a $15,000 to $20,000 estimate, which to me is actually really low for what it is. Like, that's a really classic movie. That passed. So we have this series of knives from the Rambo franchise that passed. This one had a $30,000 to $50,000 estimate. This one did as well. This one was 10 to 15. I think it might just be attributed to the fact that there was that big heritage auction with the material coming directly from Sylvester Stallone. So there was a lot of discussion online about these Blade Runner pistols. So I'm not really surprised that these passed based on what I was reading from other people that are familiar with these. They only had estimates of 4,000 to 6,000 and a 3,000 to 5,000. Those passed. The umbrella looked pretty cool. That passed. License plate passed. Costume passed. So, there's a lot of past material, but it might be because this auction is still going on too. So that might be deceiving because there's so many pages left here. Let's see. So this T2 pistol with a $25,000 to $30,000 estimate passed. Like I mentioned in the preview, I actually used to own this. I sold it for a fraction of that, so I wasn't surprised to see that pass with that estimate, as well as with the T2 shotgun. I used to own this personally, and I sold it for, less than half the low estimate here of $100,000 to $150,000. So I wasn't surprised to see that pass. This T2 jacket with a $20,000 to $30,000 estimate was passed. We see these kind of full body Terminator displays come up time to time. This one had a really high estimate of $80,000 to $120,000. That passed. So I brought attention to this dress in my preview of this auction. It's Robin Wright's dress from The Princess Bride. This had an estimate of $60,000 to $80,000. This passed and did not sell. This was actually sold by Prop Store back in 2014 for 7,000 pounds, which I believe is about $8,000 or $9,000 at today's exchange rate. So, that estimate was way higher than what this was sold for previously. To go from 7,000 pounds, so about, let's just round it up to $10,000, and then have an estimate of $60,000 to $80,000. So it's not surprising that went unsold. We've got these maquettes one maquette from Spaceballs and one helmet. Those passed. I'm just looking for things that are super notable, kind of high-end, high-value pieces. Christopher Walken's costume from Sleepy Hollow, $30,000 to $50,000. I don't know that people are really that into that film anymore. It's not. I love Tim Burton, but it's not that memorable of a film after all this time. So I made a point of expressing my opinion in my preview video that I thought this Rocketeer costume was super cool, but the estimate was crazy. And, you can see they had a pre-sale estimate of $125,000 to $150,000. I don't know. I have a hard time with that figure for the Rocketeer, but that's just me personally. But that went unsold. This Beverly Hillbillies exhibition vehicle went unsold at $70,000 to $90,000. I just don't know that anyone's into the Beverly Hillbillies to the point of spending $70,000 on an item. Just seems a little crazy. So what else do we have here? Yeah, I think I mentioned this in the preview too, this John Romita painting of it's like a recreation of Spider-Man number 40. Like I thought it was really cool, but $70,000 to $90,000 I thought was crazy. And that went unsold. So we've got 2 more pages here. And I can tell some things shifted, so I think things are still closing as we're going through here. Yeah, so this stuff has yet to sell. This auction's still happening right now. So as I said in the opening, I didn't really prepare what I was going to say about this auction, and I didn't really go through the results like I just did, in real time until I was just doing it for this video. I did watch a lot of day 3 and day 4 just out of curiosity. Kind of the vibe, I don't know, like I was kind of critical of Prop Store and the Commissar auction, that it was a slow pace. And I think if I had a criticism for the Profiles auction, it was just sort of a dour vibe. Like I don't know, I felt like I was watching, like I was standing in line at the DMV or something. Like there was no real good energy with any of this. For me, it's like I'm excited about pop culture. I love this stuff. I love that people are collecting and buying and selling, original props and costumes. And it's like an exciting thing. And I just don't feel like that's reflective in this live auction experience. Let me jump over to this now and just, let me see.
Lots of interest in this lot. We're at $3,250. Slowing down a little bit on the internet. We have $3,250, $3,500.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for the auctioneer to put him on the spot here.
Sold.
With coming up on the end of day 4.
Number 2059, Blue Hawaii.
It's been pretty
concept
consistent.
Sketch. 300 for this lot. 300 opening bid for Blue Hawaii. At 300, internet bid at 3. Single bid at 300. Any advance selling for 3. Last call. Sold 300 to 6,000. Number 2060 are 4 contact sheets by Alfred Wertheimer of Elvis Presley. 600 will be our starting bid, and we're looking for 600 to start us off at 6. 600, anybody at 600? Need to start the bidding at 600. Any advance at 6? 652 is the paddle. 2061, Elvis Presley, time behind the scenes photographs from Blue Hawaii. 200 will be our opening bid, if you wish, at 200. Start the bidding at 200 for Elvis, Blue Hawaii. 200 I have at 2. 200 the internet bid.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel bad putting him on the spot, but it's like watching someone read the phone book. It's just, there's no excitement there. There's no energy, and a lot of that is attributable to the fact that it's a 4-day auction. I realize that. So I don't know if I have any really, remarkable, insightful comments about the auction overall. It's kind of a typical Profiles and History auction. There's lots of stuff. There's lots of high estimates. There's some examples here and there where there's that Profiles magic where things go for crazy money. So this is all items sorted with the highest values descending. So obviously the Wizard of Oz archive is a huge result. Almost $1.3 million for some paperwork. But the hammer price, $1 million, is still smack dab in the middle of their high estimate of 800 to 1.2 million. So it's still within their estimate. So what I'm saying is it's not like it's 10 times their estimate or something. It's a huge amount, but it's within their estimate, which I feel, is a high estimate. So, but again, it's a huge accomplishment. And then you've got these 2 Academy Awards that did, outstanding. Like this one was, several times its estimate of over $500,000. And this one was the opening. The hammer price was the opening estimate. So it had 1 bidder. We talked about the results of the 2 Star Wars helmets being sold previously for around the same amount of money, maybe a little bit more. This is a really high price for the phaser, but there's that criticism of it being attributed to use by Spock as, screen match, and then there's no screen match photograph to go along with that. This was surprising to me, the Spider-Man 3 costume for $140,000. Jaws we talked about, that was in a previous prop store auction. I think this is a really good result for the Captain Picard chair, $121,000. This is a huge result for the hoverboard, $108,000. I don't know that one sold for that much before. Maybe it has, but if one has sold for that much, I'm not remembering it. The Wicked Witch of the West hat for $100,000. And then after the other Stormtrooper helmet, everything else is below $100,000. So you've got how many items here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 11 items that break 6 figures out of, what did I say? 2,100 items over 4 days. So, these are, on the face of it, they're impressive results, but kind of when you dig a little bit deeper, the big accomplishments, I would say, are the Academy Awards and the Wizard of Oz archive and the phaser. And a couple of these items are flips, like the Jaws clapperboard and the Star Wars helmets. That's a really good price for the hoverboard. I was kind of surprised at the results of these motorbikes. But again, like the Jumanji board, that's the same result Prop Store got this year as well. So anyway, I don't know that I have any other thoughts. Sorry, I'm rambling. Like I said, it's unscripted, but I just think it's important to kind of go over these. And, even if you just scroll down this first page of 50 items, to me, I'm just being honest. It's not a super impressive collection for profiles given some of the auctions that they've had in the past. So I'm just holding them to their own standards. As far as things that are kind of new and fresh and exciting, if I was into Wizard of Oz, I'd probably be super jazzed about that paperwork, but it's not really in my wheelhouse. Academy Awards, they're important and they're valuable, but they're not exciting to me. Look how many are handed out every year. I know there's not that many that can be traded privately because of that rule about the cutoff year, but it's not like it's something super exciting to me personally. The Star Wars helmets we've seen before. The phaser is actually really cool. Reading Dawn's write-up on it, it's cool because it's looks like it's real and it's legit. It's just gotten some criticism because of that comment in the description about it being screen matched to Spock without the evidence to back it up. The use of the term screen matched is a very specific term that it's one of the few terms in this field where people have a common understanding of what screen matching means. It means you can match it literally to something you see on screen where there's specific traits that match up where it's irrefutable. That's that item. That's it. Like that's the Holy Grail. And they've called this screen match, but they haven't shown that image. If you had that image, wouldn't you use it to promote the auction and get more money as a result? So it's just kind of strange. But anyway, like I said, I'm kind of beating a dead horse here. For me, it wasn't a very exciting auction. I love watching this stuff because I'm always curious to see what is going to happen, what the results are. Like this Doctor Strange replica cloak selling for almost $40,000. That's crazy to me. But the profile sold that Lost script years ago. That was and it was autographed by the cast. I forget what it sold for, but it was like some crazy amount. So some people just love autographs. But anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about this auction. It was fun to watch. It was fun chatting with other collectors about it and kind of getting their reactions and feedback and thoughts about it. As it was happening in live time, I was kind of chatting with some people. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I apologize if this is super long or boring. It's my first time doing one of these. I wanted to get it out while it's fresh so you can see like this auction. I think it's either just about to end or it just ended. So I'm trying to get it up quickly. So I don't even have the official auction results. I'm just going by what's on iCollector here. But I think at least it'll be a little bit more interesting, at least for some people that read the original prop blog, to have it in video form instead of having just a block of text with results and stuff. So anyway, thanks for checking this out. I appreciate it. I'll try to do more of these with more auctions and different auction houses as we get into 2019. But this was obviously a big one of the big auctions of the year. So I wanted to tackle this one right away. So thanks again.